Welcome to Pumpkin Corner Nursery. I did a little chat tonight about the paints, but I just also want to say I definitely stand behind taking reborn classes as well. Good evening. Happy Wednesday. Today is hump day. And I just came by to quickly share some of the supplies that I have. Last night I posted a video about the cosmetic wedges that I bought, and tonight someone wanted me to go over the paints that I use. So I did get this paint tray, and there are all types of shapes of different types of paint trays and whatnot, but I got this paint tray from Michaels, and I buy these little plastic containers and with the tops, and I usually label them with a permanent marker, and then when I want to change the label I wipe it off with some soap and alcohol, and that keeps my paints for a while once I put the top on it. But I did want to go over some of the paints because somebody asked me what kind of paints I use. So I do buy mostly the brand called Golden, and I make sure that it says acrylic, and this is raw sienna, raw umber, this is burnt umber. I also at one point was trying Liquitex basic acrylic. It's still acrylic paint. This is burnt umber. Here's some phthalo blue. I really love quinacridone nickel azo gold. I do mix that with my brown and with my brown colors. At one point in time, I did have this brand. It's called Wise Brent, and I think I ordered this off of an actual paint website, but this is also still acrylic paint. So I just make sure that my paints say acrylic paint, and typically I mix distilled water. So I just buy distilled water. I put it in these little bottles so I can measure how many drops of water I'm going to use. And then I also use this varnish in my paints, Folk Art Outdoor Matte Varnish. I use that in my paints as well to help the paints to adhere and stay on as I add each layer. This is a purple that I use, Dioxazine purple, but again, it's by Liquitex and it's basic. So I have a mixture of golden paints and Liquitex paints, and then this Wise brand, but I mostly am now using the golden paints. Like most of my paints are by Golden, and they say acrylics, and some of them are slow dry acrylics. Some of them, I saw something else that said high flow acrylics, but I just make sure that I'm using acrylic paints for air drying, and that I have enough varnish, and that I have enough distilled water, and that's pretty much it. That's what I'm using. And what I will say about paint in the sense of reborning is you're not using the paint straight from the tube. Well, I'm not using the paint straight from the tube. Based on what I learned as I was studying about painting reborns, is that you're taking measuring out a little bit of paint in your container, whatever kind of container you have, and you're putting it in there, you're mixing it, and then you're adding a little bit of distilled water to it, to the point where it has a watery consistency, because you're doing washes of paint. It's not like taking paint from the tube and putting it on a brush and then, no, it's putting it in a container, mixing it, thinning it out, adding some distilled water to it. But you don't want it so watered down that you can't see the color. But you also don't want it so thick that when you go to put it on, it's not going on like a smooth layer of paint. So you want smooth washes of paint, like layers, and you're going to build the layers, and then that color will get more vibrant the more layers you add. And then of course I'm going to use my varnish to make sure that the paint stays on, and that as I'm applying the paint, that it's not going to come off. It's going to, and because this is not like heat set, like you're not baking, this is air dry. Like once it dries, it's on there, unless you have some type of substance or chemical that will strip your kit, like alcohol or something like that. Well, for the most part, if your baby is well washed and the oils are gone and you varnish that kit with varnish and a little bit of water, I always add a little bit of water to the varnish. And I wear a mask when I use the varnish, or maybe you might ventilate and open a window because varnish has a very strong smell. But this is another varnish that I use, the Ultra Matte varnish. Also, this is supposed to have like a softer look to it. Most of my supplies I get off of Amazon, but I also go to Michael's and any craft stores that I can find, as long as I'm finding quality paints. And I'm sticking right now with Goldens for the most part. Like I said, I do have some other paints that I bought by Wise Brent and Liquitex, but after those run out, I'm probably mostly going to stick with the Golden for right now, unless I come across something and those paints are super duper more vibrant than the Golden brand that I'm using right now. I'm probably going to stick with Golden for right now. So I hope that helps. The person who asked me last night, can I share my paints? Yeah, I mean, these paints are everywhere. They're on Amazon. They are in Michael's. Now, paint can start to get costly depending on, like, these tubes are sold as individuals. So you buy one tube for maybe $11 or $12. I can't remember exactly, but you'll see when you go on the website at Amazon. And then these came more like a set, and these came more like a set. But you know, you just have to see what your budget is looking like. Also, for, you know, for what you're going to spend. And then you have to, what I did was I started off buying authentic kits that were on sale, and I test painted, and use different materials. And because when I started painting, I didn't even know about Goldens. I was using whatever I was using to paint on canvas. I was using that same cheap paint on. I just don't even want to think back to when I first started. I didn't know what I was doing. And not that I know what I'm doing now, but I do have a more well-rounded understanding of the goal now. And my babies are starting to look better. I think I do see growth in myself and my skill set. But the babies that I started off with, oh my God. I'm not putting myself down, but I was really fresh to this, and yeah, I had a lot of learning to do, and I was using cheap stuff. But if you really want to get into this and you really see that you have the skill set for this, I would say, put your dollars to the side, save up for high quality materials, high quality paints, you know, go on different tutorials and see what people are using. And then you have to practice with the materials and figure out what works best for you and your skill set and the type of results that you're trying to get when you're painting. And also it's so many, I would say, and maybe this is not the right term, but maybe tricks to the trade in terms of, how people get certain outcomes and what materials you're using, and then technique. Like that's, like a whole nother thing. Like certain techniques give you certain results. So you just have to explore. What I would admonish you to do is just get kits when they're on sale. Or again, you can get test parts. Maybe you're not trying to start off making a whole baby. Maybe you want to just get the test parts and start off painting test parts and do a little bit at a time. However you want to do it. I just took I think I took like a whole year, and then I started like watching tutorials, and I was taking notes. And then one day I had a baby, and the head on that baby was leaning to the side in a way that I just wasn't comfortable with. And I said, oh my, like I was so scared to take the baby apart. And I got those clippers and clipped the zip tie off. And from that day forward, I became more comfortable with, you know what, you're going to do this. You're going to buy the materials and you're going to do this and you're going to put the effort forth. And I did it, and so far I've been doing it ever since. Yeah, and just knowing when to, step away from it, take a break, let the kit dry. Don't because sometimes you can overpaint and start wiping off all your work. Acrylic paint is something that if you over wet it and overdo it and you don't give those layers time to properly dry, you can start washing off what you put on. And when you build layers upon layers upon layers upon layers upon layers, if you've ever stripped a kit, you know what I'm talking about. When you see those layers and realize how much paint you've acquired on a kit, as you're adding layers and something happens and you have to strip it, it's like, woo wee. I've been going at this for a minute. So, I think everybody has to find their own paint style or whatever. And eventually, when I originally started, I was going line by line, precept by precept on a tutorial, following it exactly as the artist was talking. But eventually you get out of that and you start painting on your own and you start using your own creativity. And then I look up pictures of real babies on Pinterest and make myself collages of real babies. I look at, how does the baby's eyelids look? How does the baby's lips look? And I look at picture after picture after picture after picture and try to get, oh, well, the lips look like this, or the toes look like this. Or sometimes I look at my own body and see, oh, my fingers towards my nails, that's a little darker. And then in the middle, it's a little darker. And so my fingers aren't all one color. Like there's some light highlights, there's some darker highlights, there's some shadows, just all the things that come with bringing depth and realism, right? And so also I took some time away from reborning and started watching videos on the color wheel and color theory and things of that nature. So I think that as you go in your study time, you will figure out what you need to do to bring the best baby out of your work. And I would say, if you're not feeling up to it, don't do it. Let the kid rest for a day or two and then come back to it. But enough of that. I talked about more than painting. So anyway, have a good night. Thanks for listening. Again, I just wanted to reiterate there are some talented artists out here selling classes that you can attend as well. So think about that as well. I have not taken classes yet, but I do plan to take some classes in the future. Good night.